here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned. Immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the bassist, guitarist, keyboard player and vocalist. It's just the one and only Jason Stoll, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. Has been in a lot of musical projects and bands, including Mugstar, Playhouse, Sex Swing, Twin Sister, and also founded God Unknown Records. So this is the interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Jason, it's over to you.
Well, when I was growing up, my mum, I grew up on a place called the Wirral, which is very to Liverpool. And my mum grew up in Liverpool, and she was a massive Beatles fan. So she was born in 1944. So she was in the period when Beatlemania started. You know, she experienced all that. She used to go to the Cavern Club, saw the Beatles a few times. So when I was growing up, we always used to play the Beatles quite a lot at home.
Yes.
So basically, the Beatles were my musical awakening, shall we say? You know.
Yes. Well, I'm not surprised actually, because she would have been 30 then. I know I've just done the maths, haven't I? When in 1964, so she was that age, really. What was your dad? Was he a music fan at all?
My dad was. He used to really like the Kinks and the Who.
Right.
The funny thing with my dad, he would never. He'd been to see a lot of bands, but never had any vinyl records or anything at home. Whereas my mum had lots of Beatles records, but she made the terrible decision to make all of her Beatles records into plant pots.
Oh, Jesus!
So
yes,
you could put them in the oven and they would basically fold up, and you could use them as a plant pot.
Wow, what a thought. Yes, well, God, I guess make do and mend generation, I guess. That was rather drastic. My God, but she saw the Beatles several times live. That must have been incredible. But did she have any children then during when did she start having children, or when did they start having children?
My mum, she was, like I say, she was born in 44, so she was, so she would have been 18 in 1962 when she first saw the Beatles. So she had me a little bit later in 72. When she was, 28?
Yes. Actually, I realised I did the maths completely wrong earlier, didn't I? I made it 30, but it was 20 when she saw the Beatles. Never mind. Jesus, I won't edit that out either. So that was a good start. Yeah, so 72. My God, what a year from... Yes, the one, I don't know, is it David Hepworth goes on about 72 being the most important year of music, actually. Had you got any brothers or sisters at that point?
Say again, sorry?
Did you have any brothers or sisters at that point?
My sister came in 1975.
Right.
On the same day. So we've got the same birthday. But
that's what I call...
3 years apart. Same as Dolly Parton as well, so we landed right.
Right, God, absolutely. That's what you call... That's another generation. They're very efficient, aren't they, actually, that war generation. They like to keep things tidy. So then when you were growing up then, being in that area, was it music and football that you were particularly passionate about?
I was never really a football fan. There was kids at school who were really into football. Lots of people in the area are into football, but I never really got into it at all. I had a Liverpool football kit at one point, but I think that was more, I felt like I needed to fit in. But my thing has always been listening to music, being a part of music. It was always basically just buying as many records when I was a sort of teenager, buying as many records as I could, and not playing football.
Yes, well, I know. Well, I suppose I sort of the 70s was very dominated. There was a real, I suppose I came from the East Anglian countryside, village life and all that malarkey. But yeah, football, it was like between the local teams, Ipswich and Norwich. But then the league was dominated by Liverpool and Leeds, basically, wasn't it, during that period? So it was just, and there were certain sporting figures like Barry Sheen and James Hunt and Kevin Keegan. They were just there, weren't they, on every programme, superstars and stuff like that. So yeah, it was kind of a strange time. So what was your first single you bought then?
Well, I've been thinking about this. I think it was a single that I bought with my own money was "The Ace of Spades" by Motorhead. My older cousin was really into Kiss,
Right.
and a few other art bands of that ilk. He introduced me to sort of heavy metal stuff, and it was Motorhead that really got me. So I ended up buying a Motorhead record, and so it must have been around 9 or 10 when that came out. Because funny thing, yeah, I remember when it was Princess Diana's wedding to Prince Charles.
Right.
We had in the local area, they had a party to celebrate it, as people would have done in the 70s and 80s to celebrate royal
Royal moments, yes.
moments, yeah, which is not something that really happens as much these days. But so they all said to the local children to bring a record that we could play. They could play at the party. So I took the Ace of Spades by Motorhead.
My God, that is such a
Which,
classic song, isn't it, as
which
well?
they never they put it on and then quickly
Took it off. Yes, God, I just looked. It was 81, the wedding. Yeah, I know. It's kind of a strange time, really. I suppose we had the Silver Jubilee of 77, which sort of crept up and sort of became a thing during that period. But yeah, I think at those stages of life, you just have one royal moment, don't you, almost, where you vaguely know it's happening, and then after that you just get a bit bored of it, really, when everyone else gets married. So that was good. Yes, but well, it was interesting because it was a very heavy metal kind of world that I grew up in, because it was status quo, and then just any metal band at that 70s and early 80s in that sort of world of mopeds and motorbikes and 250 Hondas and Yamahas and Kawasaki's. It was kind of, the countryside is a little bit behind culturally, I think, punk never sort of appeared at all. So it was, yeah, I've always had a real fondness with Motorhead. They are my favourite metal band, basically.
Yeah, absolutely special.
And I did manage to interview Fast Eddie a few months before he passed away, which was a bit spooky, really. I didn't realise he was that poorly. He didn't seem poorly at the time. So, yeah, it was quite amazing, really, dear old Fast Eddie. But yeah, that song and that album, that period with it, when Fast Eddie was on it, and Phil Clark, Taylor, and Lemmy was just that was the lineup, really. But yes. So, what was your first gig you went to?
Again, it was linked into Motorhead. It was Hawkwind when I was 16. They played in Liverpool, and a friend from school and I went to see them. I don't remember anything about it apart from they had a female dancer who wore a white dress. That's all I seem to remember from the gig. So, yeah. Some way the Motorhead Hawkwind thing has always seemed to be a first for me in a lot of areas, and seems to have continued.
Yes, well, absolutely. Did it blow your eardrums out?
I remember having like a ringing ears for a couple of days afterwards, because being very excited about being at a first big concert, and obviously stood right at the front, right next to the speakers. Didn't know any better about ear protection or anything at that point.
Well, no one did. I remember during that period going to a lot of reggae gigs in the 80s as well, and a lot of people took their kids, like real small children, on their shoulders, and stand in front of the bass bin. And I often wondered if those kids are deaf now, basically, because they were just, and it was very smoky as well, with that vibe. So yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Really, we didn't think about those things at the time, which was tricky. And what? So when did you first get a musical instrument?
Well, I always wanted to have a musical instrument, but I think my parents knew me quite well in the way that I would be into something and then would get bored of it quite quickly. So for BMXing, for example, I was very much into BMXing for quite a long time, and then one day I just decided I didn't like it anymore, and then got into road biking. So when I would always ask for a guitar for my Christmas present, they never bought me one because they thought I would just quickly get bored of it. Um,
Yes.
so when I left school, I got my first job and I saved up and my second wage packet. I bought my first electric guitar, well, my first guitar, and believing that I could basically play like Jimi Hendrix by the end of the month.
Yes.
Some reason didn't happen.
No, this is
So
true.
I then took it back a month later and ended up swapping it for a bass because I thought it would be a bit easier to play. And then I've continued with the bass ever since.
Yes.
The funny thing I didn't realize when I got the bass, it was actually a fretless bass, which I didn't know of the difference between a fretless bass or a normal bass. So it wasn't until a few months later of playing the second ever gig I did that the bass player of the other band told me it was a fretless bass. So yeah, I learned to play on a fretless bass.
God, that's amazing. Did you sort of with that sort of growing up during the 80s, it was kind of a grim period, wasn't it? Obviously, we'd had the Thatcher decade, really, wasn't it? And then there'd been the sort of the Falkland War, the miners' crisis. There would all be, Chernobyl on the horizon as well. What was it like in Liverpool or that sort of area? What was that? Did you get a sense of the cultural and political time at that in those years?
Yeah, well, I think, certain areas seemed very sort of deprived. Like where we lived, there was certain areas that, seemed a lot sort of rougher than other parts in a sense of like, a lot more unemployment, which led to a lot more crime in some areas. So we did notice that a lot. And, I remember being at primary school and, we would be talking about as 11-year-olds the end of the world, because we thought like there was going to be some sort of nuclear war or something. So the whole local sort of national political thing was having an impact. But internationally as well, it was a massive time of worry and concern, that would you actually survive until you were an adult because of all the stuff that was happening in the world. And I think, there was a lot of, because obviously Liverpool was a very Labour city, and the Wirral was more of a conservative area, would I say? So politically, it could be seen as a little bit different in a sense. But still, yeah, we noticed a lot of deprivation and issues going on with the Thatcher government.
Yes. Did you, with that sort of 80s period though, before you left school, were you getting into, apart from Hawkwind and Motorhead, were you getting into the sort of local music scene of what Liverpool or the Northwest was doing at that point? Did you start getting excited about sort of basically indie pop bands?
Didn't until because I went through a phase of being into basic heavy metal when I was a 10-year-old up until I started secondary school, and then a lot of kids at secondary school were listening to, I don't know, U2 and Simple Minds and stuff like that. So I sort of got into some of that music a little bit. And it wasn't until I was around 14 that I started listening to metal again after a school friend who's called Michael Caine, not that one,
No.
who's sold me his dad's Paranoid record.
Right, Black
So
Sabbath, my
Paranoid.
God.
Yeah, he sold me the original version for £3. So I don't know how happy his dad was at that point. So yeah, for me, I was never really into the sort of indie pop side of things until I heard Suede. I know you're a big Smiths fans. Until I heard Suede Head, and
Yes.
something with that song really changed my outlook on music because I think you can become very tribal, can't you, as a teenager? I listen to metal, I listen to punk. I'm an indie kid, and it never seemed to cross over in some ways. Um, so, well, then listening to Suedehead, it just led me down a different path of still listening to metal, still listening to punk, but then listening to like the Stone Roses and the Smiths, and it led me down a different path. And then a friend who I met when I was about 17. She was into My Bloody Valentine and the Pixies, Dinosaur Jr. And so my whole musical awakening happened when I was around 17, 18.
Yes, the late 80s. That's amazing. Yeah, because I guess because that period of yes, because it was very tribal. Because I can remember sort of, as I mentioned, the great status quo. But I do sort of there was the sort of you couldn't admit or even pretend to, or not pretend, but like even two tone that was just looked upon as you just get beaten up really if you were sort of tapping your toe to Mirror in the Bathroom or the Specials or Madness. It was just very like this is metal and that's all there is to it. Because my brother, who was 7 years older than me, he was into prog rock, but within that collection, I would sneak into his room and play the records. He did have Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. So I was very obsessed with those kind of albums as well. And Rainbow, God, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, God, that was such a great one. And Focus, which was a prog band from the Netherlands, who were very good at yodeling, apparently. So
Oh, yeah.
I did sort of have this whole, it was a bit of a conversation killer at the school, playground because no one else was kind of into Hocus Pocus by Focus. But yes, never mind. But I did, I did love sort of Paranoid and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and yeah, all those sort of songs. So that was cool. So then the 80s, there was that indie pop period I always loved to talk about, which the Smiths from 83 to 87, then they broke up. And then there was the sort of ecstasy world that started to appear. So you had the dance scene and the Manchester scene. And then you just mentioned the Pixies. So by the end, and Dinosaur Jr. So by the end of the 80s, kind of that early grunge sound started to appear a bit more, wasn't it? With bands like
Yeah.
Sonic Youth and the Buttholes and all that. And I was obsessed with Husker Du at that point as well. So were you all sort of musical changes affected by your sort of recreational drink and anything else that you might have had at that time?
Yeah, I think, well, I never really used to drink around that period, but it would always be, we'd go to a club in Liverpool called Planet X, which would be a sort of gig venue where you'd have like American hardcore bands on The Wedding Present to Napalm Death. So it'd be like there'd be gigs there every night, but they'd also have an indie disco in there. So that was a bit of an awakening for me again, going there. But it was also a club in Birkenhead called Jimmy's, which was one of the first ever sort of rave clubs. And I remember going there when I was about 16. Um, we got offered some tablets, but I think we got how can I put ripped off because we didn't. Um, but I remember being in there, and there was a lot of people in ponchos.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, the poncho phase.
yeah,
That was marvelous. Yes. Yeah, no, it was just kind of the 90s seemed so different to the 80s, the John Major years, really, wasn't it? So when did the first band appear then?
So it was not long after buying my first bass. I was at college at the time, and there was a guy who I ended up chatting to. He was a music fan and he was into metal. He was a drummer in a band, and he said his band were looking for a bass player. I was like, "Hey, I've just bought a bass." So this was without me being able to play properly or tune. And they ended up going to a couple of rehearsals and ended up joining the band. We were called Solstice. And we were trying to be like Napalm Death, sort of grindcore, super fast.
Yes.
Then we realized there was another band called Solstice, so we changed it to Pathogenic. And this band did two concerts. And the first ever concert sort of marked my world for doing gigs in the future. So it was in a bar in Liverpool called Wilson's, and we set up to play, and the whole room was totally packed. As soon as we started playing, everyone was stage diving, the whole room was dancing, and it was the best gigging experience, or one of the best gigging experiences I've ever had. And I assumed that every concert or gig I would play after that would be like that. Busy, lots of people dancing, people stage diving, people loving it. But I quickly learned that that's always not the case.
Oh my God, that was yes.
Uh,
Well, there was a real period, wasn't there, of
yeah,
because I went to, I think it was in Ipswich, the Caribbean Club to see, there was Napalm Death and Bolt Thrower and some other. There was a three. That
yeah,
was the only time I saw John Peel, at gig actually. So he was
yeah.
there. So that was, exciting stuff. So yes, we were particularly keen on Napalm Death at that point, weren't we? And there was another band called The Stupids from Ipswich.
Yeah, I remember that. They were from Ipswich, were they? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So, Jesus loved the stupid. So, yeah, so it's quite groovy. So after Solstice, or was it Pathogenic you mentioned?
Yeah. Then I joined we were a death metal band. And um we would rehearse a lot. We did a cover version of Summer Lovin', which was that was quite hilarious, being a death metal band covering that. But the claim to fame with that, the guitarist later joined Carcass. You know
Oh,
Carcass?
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was a second guitarist on their last record. Um, but they were called Devoid. Um, and yeah, so they did one album, but I got kicked out before the album was recorded, which was a good thing because it led me down a different path of doing other things. So then I joined a garage rock band after that with a friend of mine from school, and that was called Beulah Wig. And that was with the original drummer from the Boo Radleys of all
Oh,
people.
God, right.
So yeah, it was a very, very Wirral thing.
Yeah. So as the 90s progressed, were you sort of also, taking in the sort of music scene? There was the American world of Marilyn Manson and, I don't know, Red Hot Chili Peppers and Soundgarden. And then this side, we
I
had
was
sort of
never really into anything like that, Marilyn Manson or Soundgarden or the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was more, um, Husker, as you say, Husker Du, Pixies, Sonic Youth, Dinosaur Jr., that sort of area. And it sort of led me down a path of like Minor Threat and Girls Against Boys, more um, American sort of.
because there was, I think that was the Jesus Lizard as well, wasn't there?
Jesus Lizard, yeah, yeah.
They were around at that stage. Because there was a brilliant film that happened in the 90s called, was it Clerks? With Kevin Smith did a fantastic film called Clerks. It was a bit of a sort of, one of those black and white movies about just kids just hanging out, sort of, doing nothing, which sort of appealed to me at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But it had a great soundtrack. I do remember there was a band called Seaweed, which was a terrible name, but they did a really
Yeah.
good version of a Fleetwood Mac song, and it appeared on that soundtrack with, I think, Girls Against Boys and various other bands. Alice in Chains as well. There was, I think they were on there. It was just a classic film that we loved so much. So then, sort of as the 90s progressed and we went into New Labour, what happened then?
Yeah, there was, well, I was, when was that? New Layer? Was it
That was 97.
1997, wasn't it? Yeah. I'd gone back to university to do a master's. Um, so it was quite, didn't have a job at the time, so it was quite freeing, really. So I was in a band called Playhouse. They were like sort of an indie, Sebadoh, Dinosaur Jr. influenced, um, American style influence, indie rock band. I joined as the last bass player. Um,
Right.
I
So
did.
were you on their EP that had Always Jump Impossible Paper
Yeah, it was
Lace?
on that. Yeah, but they've been going like since the early '90s, and had released a couple of things before that on tape, but never really had recorded. Well, not released much. They'd recorded a lot, but never released much. They had a manager who was lovely, but I think she had promised them quite a lot, and none of it sort of materialized. So everyone got a bit disillusioned with it all, and everyone left apart from Pete, the main singer.
Pete
So,
Powell.
Pete Power. Yeah.
Power. Oh, because that record's on Spotify. Actually, I've been listening to it. But
Oh
that's
yeah,
it's a compilation, Dynamo, isn't it?
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Came out 2 years ago. So yes, the royalty checks just flowing in, aren't
Oh,
they?
yeah. Good to work.
Yes.
Voice later.
Yes, I know the retirement fund. Yeah, so after Playhouse, what did you do your degree in, by the way?
I did a degree in I ended up doing an apprenticeship first before I left school. After I left school, was a sheet metal worker, kind of like Tony Iommi from Black
Yes,
Sabbath.
I know.
Um, but unfortunately,
Try
I
not
didn't.
losing your
So,
fingers.
yeah. So I did that for 4 years, and then realised that I never really wanted to work doing that sort of thing again. So I ended up uh, going back to college to do a couple of A levels, and then went to university after that at 21. So that was in sociology and history.
Right.
And then around 97, I did a master's in social work. Um,
Yes, God, that's quite hard work, isn't it? Yes. So then after Playhouse, what was your next musical adventure?
Playhouse came to a funny sort of end. Simon, the drummer, broke his leg, and we never really practiced again after that. So Playhouse sort of died at death at that point. So my next band was a band called Mugstar, who again had been going for a few years. But they realized they're actually one of my favorite bands who were doing something in Liverpool at the time. They were sort of a bit Hawkwindy, a bit Jesus Lizard, and had like a very sort of intense sound to them. So Playhouse and Mugstar would always play concerts, gigs together in Liverpool. So when Playhouse broke up, Pete for Mugstar asked me if I wanted to join.
Yes, God.
So I did, and that was the start of a very nice career of making music. We did so many singles. We did a Peel session. We did so many albums. Toured all over Europe. Toured the States. Yeah, I was in that band for 15 years nearly. Oh,
Oh
yeah,
God,
15.
that's
Uh,
incredibly impressive, actually. So was your with your Peel session then? Oh, you did one in 2004, actually.
yeah, it was
So,
the year he passed away, sadly.
oh my God, he always loved Liverpool bands, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
I know. Can you remember much about it? The session.
Well, I remember I was on a holiday in Spain at the time, and I got this, went to the internet cafe to just check an email, and then realized there was an email from Louise Catahone, I think her name was, from John Peel's team offering us a Peel
That's
session. So it was like, oh my God, yes, finally. So it was like totally over the moon. I had to find a phone box and phone the guys to say, "Hey, we're gonna do a Peel session." So I remember driving down that morning, being really excited. We took all of our own equipment, and they wanted us to do. Off the top of my head, I think they wanted us to do 3 songs, but we had an idea to do 5. Uh, so it was
Yes.
a bit of discussion, and they said we could do 5 in the end. But yeah, well, I listened back to it when I knew he was going to do this interview, and actually sounds pretty good.
Well, they always got really good sound on John Peel sessions, didn't
Yeah,
they? It was really, oh yes, because there's a guy called Fruitier Than Thou, which seems to be able to sort of put up most of the John Peel sessions, which is always a good go-to sort of YouTube site, really, isn't it? Really. So, yes. So, did you? I mean, with that, were you often playing in lots of different bands? Because you've got quite a few here. Like you got Twin Sister, haven't you? And is Swing Sex still going then?
Sex Swing.
Sex at God, Swings at God, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's later on. Sex Swing. That started around 2015. So I joined Mugstar around 2002, and then up until 2017.
You were
So
doing.
at that particular time, I was just doing Mugstar. It was a very it sort of taught me a lot about music, and about having like a bit of a work ethic with it, because we would rehearse religiously once or twice a week, and just do it for 4 hours each time, so 4 or 8 hours a week, and it sort of honed down our sound, but also honed down how we played, and the dynamic within the group as well. And so yeah, I learned a lot by being in that band.
Yes. Could you mention that you'd managed Stacia from Hawkwind?
Yeah.
When
So, well,
I didn't
sorry.
I was going to say I didn't realise that yes, I know she was this very iconic dancer and performer at Hawkwind concerts, but yes, how did you get to meet Stacia?
Well, just a bit of a backstory. So with Mugstar, we were always Hawkwind fans, and um, so we felt, a lot of the bands we were playing with at the time were very sort of maybe post rock, sort of noise rock bands, but no one really ever spoke about Hawkwind. And then, like a few years later, people started mentioning Hawkwind a bit more. So we ended up playing a couple of festivals related to Hawkwind. We played with Hawkwind a couple of times, but we played a festival um, called Cosfest, which is in Devon, which is an absolutely beautiful festival. And Matthew Wright, the TV presenter,
No, God, I can't
he
remember.
was. I don't know if he still does, but he used to have a show on Channel 5. You probably recognize him if you see him. But yeah, lovely, lovely fella. But he's like a big Hawkwind fan. And he's had him on his TV show a couple of times. But we'd met Matthew. You recognize him?
Vaguely, yes. I was just looking at a
Yeah.
picture of him.
Yeah.
The Right Stuff.
The Night Stuff, yeah. That's named after a Hawkwind song.
Oh God, that is an amazing one.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that Robert a Calvert song, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus, that was so good,
Oh
actually.
yeah, Albert song. So
Actually, to
so
be honest, my favourite Hawkwind song is Night of the Hawks.
oh yeah.
I just think that's just
Lovely.
awesome. I just think that was just amazing. Orgon Accumulator as well. But Night of the Hawks. Did you ever see? There was one night I was just watching this film of Hawkwind at Stonehenge in about 1981, 82, and I just couldn't stop watching it. It was just mesmerizing. When they did that version, did that track, and I was just like, oh my God, I've just heard perfection. I don't know. I was very captivated by it.
I should check that out. I haven't seen that for years. But
Yes,
yes,
sorry,
we
Matthew
were at
Wright.
this, so we were at this festival called Cosfest, and we knew Matthew Wright, and we were chatting to him, and then we played our concert, and there was sort of a very tall lady at the concert, and she seemed to really enjoy what Mugstar were doing. And then when we finished our set, we're packing down, and then Matthew Wright came over and he went, "Do you know who that woman was?" And I was like, "Which one?" He went, the tall woman who's at the front. You're like, "No." And he's like, "That's Stacia." I'm like, "What?" You're like, "Yes, Stacia from Hawkwind." Like, I didn't even know, like you, that she was still around. I didn't know anything about her.
Yeah.
And so ended up, he introduced me later that night, and ended up, you know, chatting, and she was absolutely lovely. She's had a really colourful life since Hawkwind. And we ended up just chatting, and she was looking at how she can promote herself, present herself. And she had an idea to do, she got these business cards in the 70s made by Barney Bubbles, or designed by Barney
Oh,
Bubbles.
Barney.
Yeah, and she wanted to print them on a t-shirt to sell. So I ended up sort of, she asked me to be her manager at this point, and if I would manage her sort of career in a way. So we ended up doing a couple of um, Barney Bubbles t-shirts, limited edition t-shirts with posters, signed posters from Stacia. She did a lot of interviews with magazines and radio shows, and um, it was all going really well, but then she sort of had a few health issues and then decided she didn't really want to continue with that side of things for now. Um, but we were talking to a guy called Joe Banks, who has written a couple of books about Hawkwind,
Oh, yes.
about maybe working with Stacia to write a autobiography. But for now, she's decided not to continue with it for the
Oh,
moment.
what a shame. Because I do love, those sort of stories and those
Me too,
people who,
yeah. I love them as well. Like she's told me some fascinating stories, about how she met sort of Patti Smith and Alice Cooper, and she went out with one of the New York Dolls. She lived in Germany with a musician from Liverpool. She had a kid in Germany. Um, she said when she had a bit of a down period after she left Hawkwind, and she said the only person from Hawkwind who kept in touch with her was Lemmy, and
yes, I was,
like keep in touch with her and just phone her up every couple of weeks, see how she is, and would always just be like this gracious, wonderful human, you know, and whereas none of the others contacted her at all. Which I
yes. God,
think
that's
says a
so,
lot about Lemmy and how absolutely lovely he was.
because there was a guy who I interviewed recently who was I have put it actually in my memory, it's crap, isn't it? But was he the keyboard player for Hawkwind? And oh my God, this is fascinating bit of chat, isn't it? Is it David Whittaker? I think it was David Whittaker, actually. I'll have to tell you who it is later.
Yeah,
Yeah, but but yeah, that anecdote went nowhere, did it? No, but it was one of these ones where he'd had a really bad car accident and didn't want to leave the house. And actually, David Brock sort of helped to pull him
Tim Blake. I listened to that one.
right. Jeez, thank God someone's paying attention. I know. Sorry. I know it was a bit, yeah, God, he was a bit, yeah, he had been struggling, hadn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's always interesting what these characters do once their moment has kind of passed in a way.
yeah,
Yeah. So how did sort of Stacia sort of navigate her life? I mean, she obviously, just money and sort
yeah.
of
Well, she left Hawkwind in '75, and ended up moving to Germany with I can't remember the name of the band. Ashton Dyke and Gardner. Do you know that name? They were like
no.
a 1960s heavy blues band, I think. But one of the guy from the band who she ended up marrying, he was from Liverpool, but he ended up living in Germany, having a family there. She apparently sung on a couple of records, but didn't really do much music. Ended up going to art school and becoming an artist and doing like commission work, artist work. Uh,
Right.
so yeah, she was very much a mother, raised a daughter in Germany, um, and yeah, as I say, went back to art college when her daughter was
Right.
born.
Sounds a little bit like the bass player on the adverts, is it? Gay
Uh,
Black. She sort of does a lot of exhibition stuff now, doesn't she? I believe in the punk kind of world, Rebellion Festival and all that kind of stuff. So did your musical career diversify then? Did you start doing sort of other projects at this stage?
Yeah, as I say, with Mugstar, I learnt a lot from because we were very sort of religious in the sense of how much we would rehearse and record, and just it become very, there's a strong work ethic with it. But for me, I sort of started and ended up playing with other artists. So ended up doing a load of different other bands. Sex Swing for one. Um, that was just some friends from London, and we got together. They were all from different bands, and then yeah,
Did you stay with the Sex Swing for all their 5 albums at this stage? Was
yes,
it?
yeah, I'm on all of them. Yeah, yeah.
God, that's quite prolific, actually. Did you
Uh,
play live with that particular combo? Were they a
Sexual,
studio?
yes. We did play live a lot, especially
Yeah.
before COVID. We used to tour Europe regularly. Would always play festivals in the UK. But since COVID, it seems to have gone a bit quieter with doing shows with them. Um, so I've always, yeah, just been doing other musical projects. Like Twin Sister was more of a sort of a COVID band in a way that we would um, rehearse. Well, it was just before COVID, but the album came out that year of COVID. And yeah, we had a few festivals we were going to play, but then that all fell through with
God.
COVID. Uh,
Has it been a terrible decade then, kind of musically for you? Sort of.
no, it's been great. I've released like a lot of records, a lot of music, but it's just been, um, yeah, quite diverse bits of music. I played in a band called KLÄMP, also playing a band called JAAW, which
Sure.
is with Andy Cairns from Therapy.
Yes.
You know them.
How did you get to collaborate or not collaborate? Yes, work with them.
Um,
A
well, the band,
post-industrial supergroup this is, isn't it?
yes. Um, So basically, the conversation came from because I do a record label called Got Our Own Records, and it turned out that Andy had been buying a few bits and pieces from me. So we ended up communicating and just chatting. And one of the guys in the band, Wayne, I saw him at a gig in London, and I said, "Hey, you should record," because he owns a studio. I said, "You should record Therapy. See how they sound in your studio." And he went, "No, me and you should do a band with Andy." So it came from that conversation, drunken conversation in the back of a pub. So I emailed Andy the following day, and we ended up starting a band together. It was the first time that Andy had been asked to join a different band. So then we got a drummer in called Adam Betts, who's superhuman drummer extraordinaire. He plays with David Gilmour, plays with Tricky, plays in Pulp. Yeah, he's plays in Square Pusher. He's everywhere. Oh, he plays on the new Massive Attack record as well. Uh,
Crikey. Where did you record the album, Super Cluster?
we recorded it in Wayne's studio in London. Bare Bites Horse, fantastic studio. Um, but yeah.
And did
So
you ever manage to do any live dates or shows for that particular project?
we did, yeah, we did a UK tour. Um, and we keep on we keep on meaning to do more recordings, but everyone's super busy. Like we have a singer as well called Aaron, and he's not long become a father. Uh, Andy is busy with therapy. Adam is, yeah, just being a drummer extraordinaire. So yeah, we will eventually do more.
Yes. So you've got a sort of electronic solo project as well. Was it Zealand?
Yeah, so do this called Zealand. We're doing it for a few years. The first few things, I never, a couple of years, I never released anything. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that a friend of mine said, "Why didn't you release it?" And I think, it was more of a thing of, it was more not necessarily a private thing, but it was more like just something I love to do at home. And didn't know if anyone would actually like it. So I ended up putting three records out so far. And yeah, it's got some nice reviews. I've done some touring with that as well. Done some European stuff, done some stuff in the UK, and did a tour of Spain last year.
It's interesting how some bands or artists get very sort of popular in, like, I don't know, quite a few people could be very big in Italy or Spain in
Yeah,
your
yeah.
case. It's like some bands, I mean, will just have a real following and just a dedicated audience. I know Lemmy used to often say when Motorhead would go through a bad patch, playing Europe and the German audience was always kept the band going for another year
Yeah.
until the next album came out, and hopefully they got a few more sales. So it's kind of interesting that Spain's your go-to project, because I think you've got an article in was it Electronic Magazine, which is, did you get an interview in that publication?
There was a Sex Swing interview in there.
Oh, was it that one?
Uh,
Yes, well, that's very good. So, how did you, or why did you start? Because starting a record label always seems like an idea that must be very hard work. Did you have any kind of experience of doing labels, or did you just have a kind of fantasy, like I'm going to make a
yeah,
record label?
well, this is the third label I've been involved in. So I started one in the early to mid '90s with some school friends or friends from the world. Um, Called Cool Tone Records, which is still going. And we released the first single by a band called Pure Morning,
Right.
who ended up becoming Clinic.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. God,
but then, yeah, so I left that label, and then Mugstar did our own label for a little bit as well. And we're doing God Unknown Records. Basically, it came from an idea. I never anticipated that it would last 12 months, never mind nearly 12 years. Um, with Mugstar touring a lot at the time, we were playing with lots of great bands who had never released anything. So for me, my idea was to do a series of split 7 inches
right.
to get some of these bands more known, or just to have this document of their sort of existence in a sense. So when I did the first series of 10 split 7 inches, it sold out straight away, and it was a beautiful piece of 10 vinyl 7 inches, from Acid Mother's Temple to Bardo Pond, Mugstar Run, Sex Swing, Clinic. And it was, yeah, I feel very proud and also very humbled about it because, all these artists said they wanted to get involved, give me a track, and really trusted the process of how it was going to be designed um, and how it was going to be presented. So yeah, it was a very wonderful, wonderful thing to do. And then I branched out a little bit and started doing vinyl albums and LPs for bands, signing bands to the label. But yeah, it's a hard slog, but it's a fascinating and wonderful thing to do.
I would imagine actually your sort of
Yeah.
your filing system must be amazing. Your Excel spreadsheets must be just very, very on top of all this. I just think it must have a lot of admin and
There is definitely a lot of admin, yes. Yeah.
And you managed to get Terminal Cheesecaked on one of the split singles as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Gary now has relocated to Norwich because he was kind of in. Yeah, he was down in Dis, and I've always wanted to get an interview with him, but then he was always sort of moving, and it was like, okay, wait until you've moved, and then we'll get a game. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will be. Yes. So then, have you got any other? Because I know you've got a lot of bands here. Are there any others that you're currently in, or sort of have been heavily involved in?
I think we've covered most of them there. I've got a couple of bands that I'm sort of working with in because I live in the Netherlands at the moment in a place called Utrecht, and so a couple of bands in Utrecht that I'm working with at the moment. So we shall see what happens with that. But yeah, I'm still continuing with Sex Swing. We're gonna record some new stuff. Got some new recording coming up, and Zealand has got a tour, a UK tour in September.
Right. Do you have to? Is it kind of hard doing the music and then sort of having to do some sort of day job as well, keeping it all sort of balanced?
Yeah, well, it always has been for me. I've never been in a situation where I've never really worked. I've always been doing something else as well. I'd love to be in a position where I could just focus on music 100%, but you have to pay your bills, don't you?
Well, yes, this is tricky. And what made you go to the Netherlands, or not made you, but what drew you to sort of live in
I fell in love with a Dutch lady called
right.
Yeah, so.
Well, that's always going to be a good reason to relocate, isn't it, really? Do you have a studio in your place then?
I do have a small studio, yes. Yeah. It's called our dining room table.
Yes, God, that's quite groovy. And did you say you also got a radio show as well, Sonic Rituals?
Oh, yeah, so we've been doing that for the past few months as well. It's an old friend of mine from Manchester who relocated to Spain, and he started a radio show over there called NRQ.
Is it NQRA?
QR radio, yeah, sorry, Nick. Yeah. So yeah, worth checking out. There's so many great people who he's got on there. He's got Jennifer from Royal Trucks doing a show, which is fascinating. It's really good, brilliant.
Yes. Do you, with your show, do you have it sort of archived, your shows are sort of...
It is archived, yeah. I'll send you a link to it, David.
Oh, yes, do. I'd love to have a little listen, actually. It's always kind of intriguing. I think these kind of shows are fantastic because there's always people's absolute passions, aren't they, really? Which is quite always nice to sort of hear what people have sort of dug up and are, I suppose, promoting. So there you go. So do you have any live dates coming up this year? You're playing anywhere? You mentioned Zealand. Is there any other shows?
Yeah, currently it's just Zealand shows in September in the UK.
And then another album by Sex Swing.
We're going to be, hopefully recording at the end of the year and then some more shows next year.
Fantastic. Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you ever so much for your time. I hope, it's been great. And I'll definitely put the show up in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, so thanks for sort of reaching out and getting in touch. It's always nice to know that someone's interested in these interviews. Sorry that they're so long sometimes.
It's brilliant. We love them and really happy to have been a part of it. So
yeah, but it's always groovy and fascinating. But anyway, look, thanks for your time. I'll let you rock on.
Thank you too.
So is it an hour ahead than we are in the UK?
Yes, it's 10 o'clock.
Oh, Jesus, that's late, isn't it? Right, okay. Look, thanks a lot, Jason. Take care.
See you soon.
See you later. Bye-bye. Bye. And that was me in conversation with the one and only Jason Stoll, talking about his life in music. This has been the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. If you want to contact us, you can on any of the social media platform sites. Just do C86 show. In the meantime, have a great week. Stay safe.